Commander Marcus Cole pressed his back against the cold metal wall of the abandoned mining station. His breath came out in slow, controlled puffs that he forced himself to keep quiet. Through the cracked visor of his helmet, he could see the shadows moving outside. The Vexkari hunters had found him. The Vexkari were the galaxy's most feared predators. Standing over 3 meters tall with 4 arms ending in razor-sharp claws, they had hunted intelligent species across 1,000 worlds for 10,000 years. Their compound eyes could see heat signatures through most materials, and their sense of smell could track prey across continents. No species had ever escaped them once marked for the hunt, until humanity entered the galactic stage. Marcus had been leading a diplomatic mission to the neutral zone when the Vexkari ambush struck. His ship, the UNSC Prometheus, had been torn apart in seconds by the Predator fleet. Most of his crew died in the initial attack. The survivors had scattered across the mining station on asteroid KR-447, trying to evade capture. The Vexkari did not simply kill their prey. They hunted them. They enjoyed the chase, the fear, the desperate attempts to escape. It was a ritual as old as their civilization. And now, they had chosen humanity as their newest entertainment. Marcus smiled behind his visor. They had made a terrible mistake. He activated the thermal dampening system built into his suit. It was a simple technology that humans had developed for Arctic warfare centuries ago, now refined for space combat. The suit absorbed his body heat and released it gradually through specially designed vents, making him nearly invisible to thermal detection. The Vexkari passed by his hiding spot without noticing him. Their clicking language filled the corridor as they communicated, confident in their superiority. Marcus understood enough of their language to know they were discussing how to prepare the human specimens for the Huntmaster's arrival. Marcus waited until they moved on, then slipped through the shadows toward his next objective. The station's power core was 3 levels down. His plan was simple, but required perfect timing. Humanity had learned long ago that when facing a superior enemy, you did not fight their way. You changed the rules. Used cunning where strength failed. You turned the environment itself into a weapon. He reached the maintenance shaft and began his descent. The metal was cold against his gloves, and the darkness was absolute. But Marcus had spent years training in worse conditions. Earth's military had prepared its soldiers for every possible scenario, knowing that humanity's survival depended on adaptability. Below him, he could hear the screams of his surviving crew members being dragged from their hiding spots. The Vexkari were efficient hunters. They had already captured most of the survivors. Marcus felt anger burn in his chest, but he pushed it down. Emotion would get him killed. He needed to stay cold, calculating. He reached the power core level and found exactly what he expected. The Vexkari had posted guards, but only 2. They were overconfident. After all, what could one human do against the greatest hunters in the galaxy? Marcus pulled out the small device he had constructed from salvaged ship components. It was crude but effective. A focused electromagnetic pulse generator designed to overload the power core's safety systems. When triggered, it would create a feedback loop that would plunge the entire station into darkness. Darkness, the one environment where humans held the advantage. The Vexkari relied on their thermal vision and acute sense of smell. But they had evolved on a world with 3 suns, where true darkness never existed. Their eyes could not adapt to complete absence of light. Their other senses, while impressive, were not enough to compensate. Humans, on the other hand, had evolved as persistence predators on a world where half their existence was spent in darkness. They had learned to use that darkness, to make it their ally. Night vision technology was among humanity's oldest innovations. Marcus activated the device and threw it toward the power core. The guards heard the noise and turned, their compound eyes scanning for the source. But Marcus was already moving, climbing back up the shaft with practiced speed. The explosion was not loud, but its effect was immediate. Every light on the station died simultaneously. Emergency backup systems tried to activate, but Marcus had sabotaged those hours ago during his initial exploration of the station. In the sudden complete darkness, Marcus heard the first screams of confusion from the Vexkari hunters. They stumbled and crashed into walls, their superior senses suddenly useless. Their clicking communication became frantic, filled with something Marcus had never heard from them before: fear. Marcus slipped on his night vision goggles and drew his combat knife. In the darkness, with the hunters now blind, the roles had reversed. The prey had become the predator. He moved through the corridors like a ghost, his footsteps silent on the metal floor. The first Vexkari he encountered was stumbling against a wall, its forearms waving helplessly. Marcus struck fast and clean, his blade finding the weak point in the creature's armor that human intelligence had identified years ago. The hunter fell without a sound. Marcus moved on, hunting the hunters. Each time he struck, he did so from the shadows they could not see. Each time, he vanished before their companions could react. The Vexkari began to panic, firing their weapons blindly into the darkness, often hitting each other in their confusion. Within an hour, Marcus had eliminated half the hunting party. The remaining Vexkari had retreated to the station's central hub, clustering together for protection. They could hear death moving through the darkness, but they could not see it, could not fight it. Marcus reached the detention area where his crew was being held. 2 guards stood at the entrance, their weapons ready but pointed in the wrong direction. He took them down with 2 precise throws of his spare blades, then freed his people. Lieutenant Sarah Chun grabbed his arm as he cut her bonds. Her eyes were wide but focused, the mark of a trained soldier maintaining composure under impossible circumstances. She understood immediately what Marcus had done. "You turned off the lights," she whispered, almost laughing. "The greatest hunters in the galaxy, and you beat them by turning off the lights. Sometimes the simplest of solutions are the best ones," Marcus replied. He handed her a Vexkari weapon he had taken from a fallen hunter. "Can you use this?" Sarah examined the alien weapon briefly, then nodded. Human adaptability extended to technology as well. Within minutes, she had figured out the firing mechanism and safety systems. The other crew members did the same, arming themselves with captured weapons. "The Vexkari have retreated to the central hub," Marcus explained quickly. "Their ship is docked at the station's main port. If we can reach it, we can escape and warn Earth about this ambush." "What about the Huntmaster?" asked Ensign David Rodriguez, the youngest member of the crew. His voice shook slightly, but he held his weapon steady. "The stories say he never loses his prey. The Huntmaster has not arrived yet," Marcus said. "His ship is still an hour away. We finish this before he gets here." The team moved through the darkened station with Marcus at the lead. They avoided the central hub where the surviving Vexkari had gathered, instead taking a route through the maintenance tunnels that led directly to the docking port. But the Vexkari were not entirely helpless. Their leader had regained enough composure to organize a defense. As Marcus and his team approached the docking port, they found it guarded by a half-dozen hunters who had improvised light sources from their weapon systems. The artificial lights pushed back the darkness just enough to give the Vexkari back their vision. Their leader stood at the center, taller than the others, its 4 arms holding weapons that could tear through ship armor. "Human," it called out in broken standard language. "You fight well. Better than any prey we have hunted. But the game ends now. Surrender, and your death will be quick." Marcus stepped forward, making himself visible. "You still do not understand what you are dealing with," he said calmly. "We are not prey. We never were." The Vexkari leader made a sound that might have been laughter. "All species believe this at first. All species learn the truth. Do you know why humans became the dominant species on our world?" Marcus asked, still calm. "It was not because we were the strongest or the fastest. There were many predators on Earth more dangerous than us. We survived because we learned to use tools, to work together, to adapt to any situation. He pulled out a small device from his belt. We also learned to create fire. The device was another improvised creation, built from chemicals found in the station's storage bays. When Marcus activated it, the entire corridor filled with blinding light and choking smoke. The flare was specifically designed to overwhelm the Vexcari's compound eyes, which had evolved for low-light conditions with multiple suns, but never pure brightness. The hunters screamed in agony, temporarily blinded by the intense light. Their carefully created defensive position collapsed into chaos. Marcus and his team charged through the smoke, firing their captured weapons. The Vexcari fought back desperately, but they were shooting blind. Within minutes, the last of the hunters fell. The Vexcari leader lay wounded on the ground, its compound eyes still trying to recover from the flare damage. It looked up at Marcus with something like respect mixed with disbelief. "How?" it asked. "We are the greatest hunters in the galaxy. No species has ever defeated us." Marcus knelt beside the creature. "Because you hunt for sport, we hunt to survive. There is a difference." He left the leader alive, a deliberate choice. Someone needed to tell the Huntmaster what had happened here. Someone needed to warn the Vexcari that humanity was not prey to be hunted. The team boarded the Vexcari ship, and Marcus took the controls. Human pilots had trained on dozens of alien ship designs, knowing that adaptability was their greatest weapon. Within minutes, he had figured out the basic flight systems. As they pulled away from the station, they saw the Huntmaster's ship approaching. It was massive, a warship designed for hunting entire civilizations. Against it, their stolen vessel was like a mouse facing a lion. The Huntmaster's voice came through the communication system. "Human vessel, stop. You cannot escape. I have hunted across 1,000 worlds. No prey has ever escaped me." Marcus smiled and activated the ship's jump drive. Vexcari technology was actually inferior to human designs in this area. While they relied on brute force and intimidation, humans had invested in speed and mobility. "First time for everything," Marcus said as the ship jumped into hyperspace. 3 days later, Marcus stood before the United Nations Space Command Council, delivering his report. The room was filled with military leaders and government officials from every nation on Earth. They listened in silence as he described the ambush, the hunt, and the escape. When he finished, Admiral Victoria Torres spoke. "Commander Cole, you defeated the Vexcari hunters with nothing but improvised weapons and human cunning. You have shown the galaxy that humanity will not be prey." "I only did what any human would do," Marcus replied. "We adapt. We overcome. We survive." The council voted unanimously to award Marcus and his crew the highest military honors. But more importantly, they began preparing for the inevitable response. The Vexcari would not take this defeat lightly. Word of the incident spread quickly through the galactic community. Species that had lived in fear of the Vexcari for millennia began to take notice of the young race from the small blue planet. The humans who had turned darkness into a weapon and used fire to blind the galaxy's most feared predators. The Huntmaster eventually received a report from his wounded subordinate. He listened to the account of how a single human had eliminated an entire hunting party using nothing but cunning and ancient survival instincts. For the first time in his 1,000-year career, the Huntmaster felt something he had never experienced before: uncertainty. Humanity had sent a message that echoed across the stars. They were not prey to be hunted. They were not victims to be collected. They were Earth's children, shaped by millions of years of survival against impossible odds. And if the galaxy wanted to hunt them, humanity would teach them why that was a very bad idea. Marcus Cole returned to active duty 3 weeks later, commanding a new ship with an upgraded crew. His first mission was to establish contact with other species who had suffered under the Vexcari's hunts. Together, they would form an alliance that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The age of the hunters was ending. The age of humanity had begun.